Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests, and I am the prepared speech evaluator for Toastmaster Gokulram. The purpose of this project is for the member to learn about and practice following a question and answer session. The purpose of this project is for the member to practice delivering an informative speech and running a well-organized question and answer session. The member is responsible for managing time, so there is adequate opportunity for both. The timing for his speech is 15 to 20 minutes, and all the guests and the fellow Toastmasters are requested to ask questions at the end of his speech. All the best to a target speaker. Over to TMOD.
Thank you, Toastmaster Gurubaran, for that.
It was a lovely.
You carry on.
It's okay. Over to you, Toastmaster Gokulram. All the very best.
Okay, is my screen visible? Can anyone please confirm?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so good evening to all my fellow Toastmasters and guests present in today's meeting. So today I'm here to give a presentation on the topic for the love of physics. So how many physics haters are out here in the meeting? Can I just get some responses? Like, you don't like physics. Is there anyone? Okay, I can see Toastmaster Epafra, Toastmaster Joey. Okay, fine. So, okay, Toastmaster Morin. Okay, so my presentation today is not going to be like a physics lecture or a theory class. So don't get frightened or don't just run away from this presentation, please. And I can assure you that after this presentation, at least like 0.01% there is a chance of you to fall in love with physics. So let's hope for the best and let's move on. Okay. So physics is defined as a study of matter and its behavior in space and time. So physics is actually broadly classified into two categories. The first is the classical mechanics and second is the quantum mechanics. In classical mechanics, we have relativistic mechanics, and in quantum mechanics, we have quantum field theory. So the difference between classical mechanic and a quantum mechanic is lying on its size. If you are going to deal with a macroscopic level object, we go with classical mechanics. And if it is going to be tiny particle like hydrogen atom, helium, or some microscopic level particles, we deal with quantum mechanics. And classical mechanics, another subdivision is relativistic mechanics, in which the speed of that object is comparable to the speed of the light, which is equal to 3 into 10 power 8. And that will be discussed further in this presentation. And in quantum mechanics, we have quantum field theory, which will not be discussed here because even many scientists couldn't understand it well. And it's one of the most hated topic in physics. So that will not be discussed here. So please don't worry. Okay. Just imagine this world if physics never existed. Can someone say like what are the things we would be missing out if physics never existed?
Gravity.
Anyone? Yes, gravity. Next.
Electricity.
Electricity, yes. Anyone else?
Magnetic force.
Yes, okay. It's going too much technical. I'm not going there. Okay, first the basic thing that we'll be missing out is friction. So friction is something that enables us to walk or move forward. So the force that acts on our leg is the static friction, which actually we push it down and we ourselves go forward in order to walk. If there is no physics, there will be no friction. And as Varun said, there will be no gravity. So if there is no gravity, we will not be binded to the earth. Everyone would be in a floating state. And third, it's a very important one, there will be no light. Because light is made of photons and a packet of photons makes up a beam of light. So without physics, even that doesn't exist. So these three are the basic things and the most important thing that we'll be missing out. And the list actually goes on. Like there will be no electricity, no temperature, no heat, cold, no thermodynamics, nothing. Almost it's like if you ask whether a human being will exist without physics, it's a question mark. Now let's see some basics of physics. The main reason why most of the people get hatred towards physics is because they don't understand the basics properly. It's like giving you a math problem, but you don't know addition, subtraction, division, or multiplication. Similarly, in physics, without knowing the basics, definitely you will not understand the further concepts. So the first and the foremost basic of physics is nothing but the Newton's laws of motion. So in our school days, we would have come across this Newton's laws of motion. Can anyone say any one law? It doesn't matter like first law, second law, third law, any law.
Every action.
Every action there is an
Equal and
opposite.
opposite.
Energy is not greater in other side.
Okay, I'm getting multiple answer which shows your enthusiasm towards physics. Okay, so the first law is the first law actually states a body remains to be in a state of rest or in a state of motion until or otherwise you apply an external force. That's what the first law is. For example, if I have a hockey stick and I have a hockey ball, that hockey ball will remain in rest until or otherwise I apply some force. And when I apply a force, it starts moving in the direction where I applied the force. So this is what the first law actually states. Now coming to the second law. Does anyone know the second law?
Law of momentum.
Very good, Guru Baran, very good. Because to understand this law, it actually took me like around 6 months. This law was first introduced to me in 9th standard, and I never understood anything at that time. So let me say how my teacher taught me this law. He came to the class and told me, everyone listen. The second law of Newton's law is nothing but force is directly proportional to rate of change of momentum. Everyone note it down. And this law is there in the page number, this one. Okay, fine. But I never understood. So I went to the sir and asked him, sir, could you please explain this law once again? Again, he said the same definition. Force is directly proportional to rate of change of momentum. I asked him, sir, like what is rate of change of momentum? For that he replied, rate of change of momentum is change of momentum. Again, I didn't understand anything. So from that day onwards, I made my mind that I shouldn't be asking any question or doubt to my physics teacher. For all my physics doubts and physics related question, I always consult my best friend Google and no one else. Okay. So to understand the second law, we have to know what is force. And on force is directly proportional to rate of change of momentum. And to know momentum, we have to know what is mass. And along with this, we have to know what is velocity. And to know velocity, we have to know displacement. So let me ask a quick question to everyone. If you are going to stand on a weighing scale, what is the quantity that you are actually measuring? Is it your mass or is it your weight?
Mass.
Mass.
Okay, any other answer? Anyone? Everyone is going with mass.
Mass times gravity, gravitation.
Okay, mass times gravitation, that is weight. Okay, next. Okay, let me give the answer. So there is a difference between mass and weight. Many people think mass and weight are the same, but it is not. So let's say you weigh around 70 kg in Earth. 70 kg is your mass. And whichever planet you go, that mass will remain the same irrespective of the gravitational pull in that planet. But your weight doesn't remain the constant. The weight is nothing but your mass times the gravitational pull. So in Earth, we have 9.8 meter per second square, but we engineers used to approximate it as 10 meter per second square. So we get it as 120 into 10, that is 1200 newtons as the weight. And if you go to the moon, you will be having a lesser weight, but your mass remains the same. So that's the difference between the mass and weight. And next is the velocity. Again, there is a misconception of relating velocity with speed. Both these quantities need not be the same, but they can be same. Like if I'm going to drive a car in a road, then in that case we'll be discussing about the speed with which the car is traveling. But if it is going in a curvy manner, for each direction, what is the speed? That is what is velocity. So this is the difference between velocity and speed. And finally, when we multiply this mass and this velocity, we get momentum. So finally, when we apply the rate of change of momentum, mass remains the constant and the rate of change of velocity will give rise to acceleration. So finally, we get the Newton's second law equation, that is force is equal to mass into acceleration. So it is simple as that. Next is the third law of Newton's laws of motion. And the third law, as everyone said, every reaction has an equal and opposite reaction. Can anyone give one example for this third law?
Recoil of a gun on a loading of.
Yes, perfect, Joey, perfect. Yes, even the same example I have it. Recoil of gun is one of the perfect example for this third law. When you fire a gun, you'll be actually having a jerk from the gun. That is because of the recoil. The force at which the bullet is going forward is being equalized with the force that is given backward, so that the gun doesn't move forward. Let's say this third law doesn't exist, or there is no third law. In that case, if you are going to shoot a bullet with a gun, even the gun moves along with the bullet, and there will be no recoil. So that is how useful this third law is. And next basic concept is the work and energy. So here the work is not the work that we do, it's a physics work. So the work is actually defined as like moving a particular object to a certain distance. In that case, that is said to be work done on that object. So in this example, there is a man lifting a box from the ground. So as he lifts the box from the ground, he is doing some work against the gravity, because there is a force of gravity that is pulling the mass down and he is pushing it up. So this is known as the work done. So if he is going to release the block from this position, the block will come down with some velocity. So the work done by this person is actually stored as energy in that block. So finally we get the work energy theorem, which states the total work done on this block is equal to the change in kinetic energy. And the third basic concept is centripetal force. To understand centripetal force, let me give an example. Take a ball and tie it with a thread. And when you actually rotate it in a circular path, that particular mass will be having a centripetal force. For example, yeah. So as you rotate the ball in the circular path, that particular mass will be having a centripetal force, which actually tries to pull that ball towards the center of the center of your hand. So this is this centripetal force is very much used when we are actually taking a turn using a car, or a turn using a bicycle. So this centripetal force plays a very major role. Without the centripetal force, your car would be drifting away if you actually don't have this centripetal force concept. And when we take a turn in the road, what happens is the centripetal force and the friction of the car matches with each other, and we will be able to take a turn without any difficulty or danger. Okay, so now let's move into the next topic, like how movies actually portray some of the physics concepts, because we know that many of the action films, many of the Tamil, Telugu movies actually portray the physics concepts in a very bad and broken way. So let me give some example. Okay, this is one scene in which the hero is throwing away two enemies into the air. His weight will be around maybe let's say 80 kgs, and he is having both in his hands the same 80 kg. So it is actually impossible for a person to lift the same weight as him with one hand. It's really impossible, but he does it anyway. Okay, let's leave that. After he throws them into the air, they are still in the air. They never came back to the ground, which is again defying the law of gravity. So this is one scene. Let's see the next scene. Here a train is actually approaching a injured person in the track. So what the hero does is he approaches to the injured man and he carries him, and he runs much faster than the train, which is actually impossible because the train speed will be around 100 km/h, and the average man's running speed is around 10 km/h. So it is nearly impossible to actually overtake the train, but somehow he does it. And the third, okay, this is one of my favorite movie scene. Like the hero actually shoots a car with his 9mm pistol. Let's say 9mm pistol. It's a pistol, but I don't know the diameter of the bullet. So he shoots with his pistol on the car. So the momentum of the bullet is really low because of its size and its diameter, and the car's momentum is much higher than the bullet's momentum. And after he shoots, what happens is the car flies away, it starts toppling, and does all the things that it shouldn't be obeyed by the physics. So the law of conservation of energy is violated, and conservation of momentum is also violated. And the next one, so here the hero is actually having a rocket launcher. Rocket launcher is actually a heavy, very heavy kind of weapon, but somehow he lifts it from the ground. Okay, that's not a problem right now. But there are 4 rockets. Each rocket, if you see, it will weigh around 100 kgs. So 100 into 4, 400 kgs. Somehow he lifted it. Okay. Now the next problem is, as he shoots, according to the third law, there should be an equal and opposite reaction, and the mass of the rocket is much higher. So if he's going to just shoot with his 2 hands, the rocket launcher will go backward somewhere. But somehow he shoots, and instead of recoil, there is just smoke coming out of that particular rocket launcher. So this is one scene. So this is the scene from Bahubali, where the hero jumps from the first mountain to the second mountain. And the funniest part here is he actually jumps without any initial velocity. He just jumps like a free fall without putting in much effort to jump to the second mountain. Even the Olympic record for long jump is around 8.95 meters, and the distance between these 2 mountains looks to be more than 10 meters, but somehow he jumps without putting in any initial velocity to the next mountain. Okay, so that's it about the movie physics concepts in movies. Now let's move into the next topic, that is the theory given by Einstein, that is the special theory of relativity. So does anyone know this special theory of relativity? Can you just give a gist about it, if anyone knows? Because this
E is equal to mc square.
Okay, yeah, that is one of the final result that we get from this special theory of relativity. Okay, does anyone know the meaning of E equal to mc square? Okay, fine. Okay, let me explain this special theory of relativity with a super example. Let's say you and Albert Einstein are traveling in a train, and the train is moving with some velocity. So with respect to the train, you both are at stationary. So when you see each other, you remain to be in a state of rest, because with respect to the train, you are at you both are at rest position, which means you both, when you see each other, you will be remaining in the same stable rest state. And in second case, if I'm going to put you on the ground and Albert Einstein is moving in the train, so now what happens is, when you see from the ground, you see that Albert Einstein is moving with the same velocity as the train. So this phenomenon is known as relative motion, and every objects, every particles, everything follows this relative motion concept. Even we are in relative motion. The earth is under rotation, and relative to the earth, we are under rest. So that is what the relative motion concept is. But there is one thing that doesn't obey this relative motion, and that is light. Light doesn't obey the relative motion. To prove this, let me give you a light clock. So this light clock is actually made up of 2 mirrors, and there are 2 mirrors on the opposite side, and there is a light beam inside this particular light clock. Okay, so the distance between these 2 mirrors is taken as to be d, and the time taken for this light beam to touch both mirrors is 1 second. So eventually we get the speed is equal to the speed of the light beam, which is nothing but speed of the light. So that light clock is being given to you. You notice that the distance between the 2 mirrors is d, and the time taken by the light beam to touch each mirror is t, that is equal to 1 second, and the speed is nothing but speed of the light. And the same light, this light clock is being given to Einstein also. But the only difference is he is traveling in a spaceship with that same light clock, and that spaceship is moving with the speed that is almost comparable to the speed of the light. So now what happens is, according to relative motion, the speed at which this light beam is moving should be equal to the speed of the spaceship, according to relative motion. But there is one problem out here. If it is going to move with a speed much greater than the speed of the light, it should have to travel a greater distance than its original distance. So we get a new speed that is equal to capital D by 1 second, which is much greater than the speed of the light. But according to many physics experiments and laws, speed of a light should be always constant irrespective of which place you are in. So there is a problem out here. In order to compensate this problem, we are going to modify the time. Rather than touching the speed, we are going to modify the time. So now what happens is, it's going with the same speed that of light, and the spaceship is moving much faster. So what happens, or what is the interesting thing that that we can notice here is, when we are traveling much faster, the time moves much slower. So that's what is being proven by Einstein. So if Einstein is going to spend 1 day in spaceship, it will be nearly equal to 50 years in Earth. So when Einstein comes back from the spaceship, we would be noticing that we have spent around 50 years in Earth. So this is the basic concept of special theory of relativity. And in many movies, what they show as a time travel is based on this phenomena. That is, when we actually approach the speed of the light, and when we become equal to the speed of the light, the time stops. And if you are able to go much faster than the speed of the light, then we move backwards in time. So that's what is the basic and the general idea of special theory of relativity. Okay, so from this special theory of relativity, we get one of the famous equation, that is E is equal to mc square, where E is equal to energy, m is equal to mass, and c is equal to the speed of the light. So to put it in simple words, it is for every 1 kilogram of mass that we turn it into energy, we get around 9 into 10 to the power 16 joules of energy out, which is almost equivalent to 21 megatons of TNT, which is really enough to destroy one full city. So that is what the significance of E is equal to mc square is. And just because of this equation, there are many atom bombs created, nuclear bombs created, just using this equation E equal to mc square. So that's how powerful this equation is. So now let's see some basic properties of quantum mechanics. I'm not going so deep into quantum mechanics because it's a vast syllabus, and I just want to cover small topics in quantum mechanics. So in quantum mechanics, we treat a matter as both particle and wave nature. So it can exist in two states, and that state could be found out only after the experiment that we carry out. The second property is it is discrete in nature. That is, it will be not available in a decimal points. Rather, we'll be getting it as an integer. And the third property, it deals with probabilistic measure. That is, it obeys the wave function given by Schrodinger. So we wouldn't be knowing whether it exists or doesn't exist. It's like saying, if you remember, like in S.A. Surya movie, he used to say irukku ana illa. The similar thing goes on with this too. Like we'll not be knowing whether it is there or it is not there. Okay, so let me give one of the funniest experiment that was given by Schrodinger's cat experiment. And many of us would have seen this as a meme in many of our social medias, that is the Schrodinger's cat. So what this experiment was all about is, he just imagined a cat. And what he did is, like he didn't do it in a real physical world. He just did it in a thought process. He just imagined that what will happen if this was going on. Like he put that cat in a confined closed closed box, and he kept a radioactive element along with that box. So at the end of this experiment, or at the end of 1 hour, there is an equal chance for this cat to be both dead as well as alive. So we don't know whether it is going to be dead or alive. It's all dependent on whether it could survive that particular radioactive substance or not. So what Schrodinger said was, till we open the box, the cat can be in two states that is both dead as well as alive. Only after the box, only after we open the box, we will be able to know whether really the cat is dead or alive. So till then, it will be having two states, and after we open the box, we'll be having one definite state. So that's what Schrodinger's approach was to this experiment. Okay, so I think we have almost completed with all the basic topics and concepts of this physics presentation. If anyone have any kind of questions, please come forward. Anyone? Even if it's going to be a basic question, it's not a problem. Just give some question. At least ask what is force equation. Even that will suffice.
How does the induction motor start?
Bro, this is okay. I'll explain you. I am not so much good at electronics and stuff. I'm only good at mechanics and its properties. But induction motor is actually working with the principle of a magnetic flux. That is like when there is a flux in the first coil, the same that flux will be actually transmitted through the second coil through the concept of something they used to say. There's a term for that. So using that, the induction motor actually gets powered up and it starts rotating. So that's the thing that I know.
Yeah, marvelous answer, Gokul Ram.
Okay, any other question? Varun, can you please give a question?
Yeah. Okay.
Because
What
you are
happens
so-
if there is no sun drop?
What
Like
happens if there is?
if the sun suddenly disappeared, what will happen to Earth?
Okay, if sun suddenly disappears, first
Yeah.
of all, there will be no energy. For all the living beings, sun is one of the energy source. So first, that energy source will be cut off. So when we don't have energy, even the survival of human beings and other living beings will come to a question mark. I think I answered your question, Toastmaster Varun.
Okay, like in terms of Earth, like physics in terms of
Okay, in physics, yeah, the rotation will not get affected due to the sun energy and all. But what happens is, as I said earlier, energy will be cut off, and secondly, the centripetal force, there is a chance for it to get reduced due to reduction in energy. Varun.
Okay, I don't know the answer. I simply asked.
Okay, I think due to reduction in energy, the centripetal force acting on the Earth will also get decreased.
Okay, nice.
Gokul Ram,
Yes.
I want to ask something which isn't very related to the speech, but I want to know, you know a lot of physicists, right? So who contributed most to the physics? According to you, which physicist contributed most to you? Bring top two.
Okay, for top two, I would say first is Albert Einstein for sure, because his theory is playing very important role nowadays in manufacturing many things. Even the satellite GPS is working with this principle, that is the general theory of relativity. And the second physicist I would say as Nikola Tesla, because his contribution in the field of alternating currents and its related applications have played a very important role in manufacturing many electronic appliances in today's world. So that would be my two great suggestions. Any other questions?
I think Toastmaster Janika is trying to ask a question.
Yeah, if you want to ask any question, you can definitely ask.
So I'm just thinking, instead of my physics teacher, I wish to have you as my physics teacher. Still, I don't get to know few techniques and terms in physics. But after listening to your speech, I learned a lot.
Yeah, that's what the problem with most of the physics teachers in today's society. Like they just say only the outline of physics and they don't go much deeper into the concept. So that's the reason why we don't understand much of the physics concepts.
So one
Okay, if there is no any question.
Final question.
Oh yeah, you can.
Yeah, what's your physics mark in 12th public exam?
Bro, you're asking that. Okay, I'll say it anyway. I was studying in CBSE board and I got around 95.
So you are explaining every concept in a practical way. That's of it.
Okay, thank you.
Gokulram, you're on mute.
Okay, so thank you one and all for listening to my presentation. With even though I have exceeded the time, everyone have had a really good patience and listened to my presentation. So thank you everyone. Thank you.